to me, I would, in terms of the names that are out there, if it's an experienced guy like Trey Living, I would prefer Trey Living over a lot of the other options. My hot take would be, I know again with just the moves, like to me, I saw Bergevin's name out there and I'm like, bro, guy's a Montreal guy. Like I just don't know if I'm having that. But yeah, these other names that are out there, just Benning, Chiarelli, just not happening for me. There's a few other names. I saw a lot of people on Twitter. I don't know if my guy Sal's in the chat right now, but I've seen some like people throw out combination of like connections to Shanahan, whether it's like Del Gilmore or Chris Draper or names like that. I've seen a lot of people on Twitter talk about both those names in terms of like, I don't know, director of amateur scouting or an AGM or whatever it is. Obviously the AGMs right now for the Leafs are Haley Wickenheiser and Pridham. So Pridham, there's this scenario where he could go to another organization. I know Calgary had that conversation, but it looks like Calgary's going to be hiring Conroy. So big news for the Flames. Just talking about that quick. Conroy, I think dub pick for their GM spot. And I mean, Nonis, we know Nonis can be a disaster, but I think Nonis is like an AGM is fine just to give, he's not making final decisions, but maybe just in terms of his experience around the league, Nonis can give you some stuff of what not to do. And then if Jarome Iginla becomes involved in the Calgary Flames organization, I think that ends up being really cool. So for me with the Flames, I think the Leafs should take a page out of that book. Have some, like, I think even more diversity is good. So like, I think for the Leafs, if you have a combination of like, this is just an example. Say the Leafs brought in Trey Living, Chris Draper, and had Haley Wickenheiser as the AGM, and then promoted Pridham in a way to, I don't know what the role would be called. But if you had those four individuals I just said, like Trey Living, Draper, Wickenheiser, and Pridham as four people that are kind of holding like the fort down with Shanahan as like a guy that's not interfering as much as he's been, I think that's a better option for the Leafs. Taking a page out of what Calgary's doing right now, and you have guys that are invested in this hockey team. Craig Conroy, heavily invested in the Calgary Flames. Nonis coming in with the experience, and then Jarome Iginla, who is literally the face of the Calgary Flames. If that's the rumor right now, I mean, that's the conversation right now, that Iginla will join the Flames at some point. But Leaf, Draper's from Toronto. You didn't know that? Draper's from Toronto, and he's friends with Shanahan. He's pretty close with Shanahan. So, as I said, a balance. You have somebody who's invested, like Haley Wickenheiser, like Pridham, that have been involved, and then you have experience as a player and guys like Draper, and then someone like Haley Wickenheiser who has quite the resume in hockey, and then you have an experienced GM in Trey Living. So, as I said, yeah, Draper probably stays in Detroit but if they were to give Draper a promotion, that's all I'm saying. People have said that quite a bit about GMs. Right? So Shanahan was a Red Wing, but he's from Toronto and he's the president of the Leafs. As I said, I'm just giving you what I'm thinking in terms of their structure, in terms of what they're looking for. So I think there's a balance of going for the player aspect, going for an experienced GM, and then having someone that having someone that has that diversity, has that different approach. So I think the Leafs should try to bring in maybe one or two different people. Yeah, because obviously Spezza was like the special AGM kind of, but he left with Dubas. So we'll see what happens, but I hope the Leafs go that route instead of just getting like one dinosaur with Shanahan. Like, I see a lot of comments of people asking for Mark Hunter. I'm telling you right now, if Shanahan and Mark Hunter are running the show in Toronto, I don't think that's going to be a good result. I do not think that's going to be a good result. The drafting with, like, I'll just put this out there and finish the conversation. Alex DeBrincat was on the board, and Mark Hunter decided to pick 6'3" Igor Korshkov over Alex DeBrincat because he's big and strong. Bro, it just, look at the drafting since Dubas joined, drastically better. Obviously, I want a winning GM in here for Toronto and a guy that's got that experience and that bite, as they put it, but also having a group together that's sensible. Having a group together that actually is logical in terms of the whole picture, not just in terms of one aspect. Playoff winning, development and drafting, and player personnel. Like, you've got to have a balance. And that's why I said a former player in there is huge. Having a former player, having that experienced GM that's gone through it, that knows the rights and wrongs and knows balanced like approach. And then obviously having someone that has major investment. So at this point, Shanahan has major investment. Haley Wickenheiser for me has major investment. Pridham has major investment. So they have to have, I think, a balanced, we're talking about the core on the ice, well, a core management group that's going to make the decision making. So yeah, guys, I think the Calgary Flames are doing well with that in terms of what's rumored out there, and I hope the Leafs follow.